7 countries cutting exports to the US, signing million-dollar deals with Canada. Instead, right now 7 of America's top suppliers are shifting the lifeblood of our economy, fighter jet metals, hospital drugs, even the coffee in your cup, away from US ports and into Canada's hands. In just a single year, billion-dollar agreements have rewired trade routes across the globe, making Canada, not the United States, the go-to North American partner. The result? Rising costs, empty shelves, and a slow erosion of America's industrial edge. Canada is locking in the future while Washington argues about the present. But here's the real question. Will America realize what's happening before the gate closes for good? Today we're breaking down the 7 countries cutting back exports to the US while signing massive deals with Canada, and why this could change the global economy as we know it. Let's count them down. And you won't want to miss number on the list. Number 7. Colombia coffee and oil. Number 7. Colombia coffee and oil. Colombia, the land of world-class coffee beans, is no longer pouring its richest harvests into U.S. ports. For decades, the United States was the primary buyer of Colombian coffee and a major importer of its crude oil. But over the last year, Canada has stepped in with multi-million-dollar contracts, promising not just steady demand but also investments in processing plants inside Colombia itself. This means Colombian coffee farmers are getting better prices, Canadian roasters are getting priority supply, and U.S. consumers, they're already noticing higher prices at Starbucks and shortages of premium beans. The same story goes for oil. With Canada's booming refinery capacity, Colombia has found a stable buyer right next door. America, meanwhile, faces tightening supplies and rising import costs. For everyday Americans, that translates to expensive lattes and pricier gas, both quietly linked to this shift. Number 6. Vietnam electronics and textiles. Vietnam has been a manufacturing powerhouse for years, churning out everything from cheap textiles to sophisticated electronics. The US was once at the top of Vietnam's trade list, but now, Canada is leapfrogging with long-term deals covering semiconductors, smartphone parts, and sustainable textiles. Why? Canada is offering something Washington hasn't: tariff stability and investment in green factories. While the US debates tariffs and supply chain security, Canada is simply signing the checks. The effect? American companies are struggling to secure reliable shipments of electronics. Laptop components, TV panels, and even basic clothing lines are facing delays. Meanwhile, Canadian retailers are boasting about exclusive Vietnamese designs hitting their shelves. Vietnam's pivot shows how quickly supply chains can be rewired, and how easily the US can lose out when it fails to offer competitive terms. Number 5. Brazil, beef and soybeans. Think of your next burger or your morning soy latte. Brazil is behind both. For years, the US has relied on Brazilian beef and soybeans to fill supermarket shelves and feed livestock. But today, Canada is signing billion-dollar agricultural contracts that redirect a huge chunk of this supply northward. Canadian ranchers and food processors are thrilled. Brazil gets a stable, friendly trade partner, and Canadian grocery chains are locking in steady prices for their shoppers. In contrast, U.S. consumers are seeing meat prices hit record highs, while soy-based products like tofu and soy milk creep up in cost. This isn't just about food, it's about food security. When the world's biggest agricultural exporters start preferring Canada, the U.S. suddenly looks vulnerable in its own backyard. Number 4, Australia critical minerals. Here's where things get serious. Australia is one of the world's largest suppliers of critical minerals, lithium, cobalt, and rare earths essential for fighter jets, smartphones, and electric cars. The United States desperately needs these resources to maintain its tech edge, but instead of shipping bulk quantities to America, Australia is now prioritizing Canada. Why? Canada has been building up its own battery factories and EV industries while also offering joint exploration deals with Australian miners. The US, by contrast, has been bogged down in environmental reviews and political fights over mining permits. The result? Canada is securing the building blocks of the future while the US risks falling behind in the global race for clean tech and defense manufacturing. It's not just an economic shift, it's a strategic vulnerability. Number 3, Mexico manufacturing powerhouse. Mexico is America's neighbor and longtime manufacturing partner, but even here, things are changing fast. Over the last year, Canada has overtaken the US in several key Mexican industries, from auto parts to medical devices. Why? Canadian firms have been investing directly in Mexican factories, offering not just contracts but also technology transfers and worker training. That's a big deal. It means Mexico's growth is increasingly tied to Canada's supply chain, not America's. For the US, this is a nightmare scenario. If you've noticed car prices skyrocketing or delays in getting spare parts, this is one reason why. Canada is gradually becoming the preferred partner for Mexico's booming manufacturing base, right under Washington's nose. Number 2. Germany. Pharmaceuticals and machinery. Germany isn't just Europe's powerhouse, it's a lifeline for advanced medicine and industrial machinery. Traditionally, the US has been one of Germany's biggest buyers of high-grade pharmaceuticals and factory equipment, but now, Canada is clinching long-term pharma supply contracts that give its hospitals priority access to German-made drugs. During the pandemic, supply shortages revealed just how fragile America's pharmaceutical pipeline really was. Canada took note and moved fast to lock in deals. It doesn't stop at medicine. German precision machinery, used in everything from auto plants to aerospace factories, is also being redirected. For the US, that means production slowdowns and rising costs. For Canada, it's a win that strengthens its industrial base and healthcare security. Number 1. Saudi Arabia, oil and petrochemicals. At the very top of our list is none other than Saudi Arabia, the kingdom whose oil wealth has long powered the world and fueled America's economy for decades. For much of the 20th century, the US-Saudi relationship was simple. America provided military protection, and Saudi Arabia provided energy security. This oil for security pact ensured that US refineries stayed supplied, gas stations stayed open, and American industries, from airlines to plastics, never ran dry. But now, that decades-old balance is starting to crack apart. In a stunning pivot, Saudi Arabia has begun redirecting billions of dollars worth of oil exports and petrochemical deals to Canada. Multi-year contracts are being signed not just for crude oil but also for advanced petrochemical partnerships that lock in Canada as a preferred North American energy hub. Why Canada? There are several reasons. 1. Stable partnership. Canada doesn't have the same history of political tension, sanctions debates, or military entanglements that often strain US-Saudi ties. For Riyadh, Canada looks like a less volatile bet. 2. Refinery capacity. Canada has been investing heavily in modernizing its refineries, particularly in provinces like Alberta and Quebec. These facilities are hungry for Saudi crude and can process it into high-value products efficiently. 3. Petrochemical expansion. Canada isn't just importing oil, it's partnering with Saudi companies on joint petrochemical plants, ensuring that raw Saudi oil is refined into plastics, chemicals, and fertilizers before it ever leaves North America. That means more profit for both sides and less reliance on U.S. facilities. The impact on America is already visible. Gasoline prices are climbing, U.S. refineries are scrambling to find replacement suppliers, and industries that depend on petrochemicals, everything from packaging companies to pharmaceutical firms, are bracing for cost spikes. But the implications go beyond economics. This shift undermines one of Washington's most powerful tools, energy leverage. For decades, access to Saudi oil gave America a seat at the table in Middle Eastern geopolitics. But if Riyadh starts seeing Ottawa as its go-to partner instead of Washington, America's influence in the region could shrink dramatically. And let's not forget the ripple effect. If Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil exporter, is willing to shift away from the U.S. toward Canada, other energy-rich nations might follow suit. For Canadians, this is a golden opportunity. They're gaining secure energy flows, discounted crude prices in some contracts, and a stronger hand in North America's industrial supply chain. For Americans, it's a wake-up call. The reliable flow of cheap Saudi oil can no longer be taken for granted. To put it bluntly, Saudi Arabia's pivot toward Canada is more than just an energy deal. It's a strategic earthquake. It shakes the very foundations of U.S. energy security, military alliances, and global standing, and that's why it earns the #1 spot on our list.